So we're going to go ahead and start off. Everyone got a copy of the handbook too, correct? We're also going to put a link to that in the chat box, so you can click on that. We're going to start off with a little scavenger hunt. So Ryan's going to put you into teams, and then you can work with your teams to answer 5 questions. And I'm going to post those. Oops.
I'm going to break them up. I'm going to break you all up into groups of 4. The facilitators just need to leave the breakout room. And then, so I may have a group of like maybe 3 or something like that, but you all take care of business. So give me 1 second. I will break you up into groups right now. So I'm just using Zoom. I see that I have, just to kind of give you a little bit of an introduction, Zoom will actually do breakout rooms to where you break off into small sections, into small rooms away from the main meeting. So let's see, assign into 3 rooms. I want to do into, let's try about 5. So it'll be about 4 or 5 participants per room. So I'm going to hit create, and what I'll do is, when you're done, you can leave, or I'll boot you out after so much time.
So we'll give them like 10 minutes, and then you can introduce yourselves too while you're in your small groups. Yep. So on the screen, you should be seeing the 5 questions that we are asking you to find in the handbook. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and see what you came up with for answers. So you can just unmute yourself and shout out the answer that you get. That would be fabulous. So the first one, students in a School of Education program who do not upload a chalk and wire assignment will
not get a grade.
The 0 for the course. 0. For that assignment.
The assignment.
0.
Yep, and so Ryan's going to go over some chalk and wire information in a little bit, but this is really, really important. So we collect data that we use to write annual reports, and then we do also our national accreditation reports, and they go to our specific programs for national accreditation. And so if we don't have this data, then we're not going to pass, and we're not going to be nationally accredited. So that's why it's always important for us to get these chalk and wire assignments recorded. All right, so which School of Education committee is responsible for all of these items?
Initial certification committee.
Yep, the initial certification committee. So we have obviously tons of committees, as you can see on the in the handbook, and so initial certification works with our initial our undergraduates and also graduate students who are getting initially certified. What is the School of Education conceptual framework and each part?
RSVP, so research, self reflection, vocation, and practice.
Yes, yep. So this is something that we have in all of our courses, and you'll see it in the syllabus template. This is something that when we get our national accreditation visit, they ask about this, and we have it posted on the bulletin board in the hallway. We also, our professional development schools that we work with, we make sure that all of our mentor teachers are aware of this as well. And these are the things that we really abide by and make sure that all of our teachers and our educators are aware of this framework. If students require accommodations in a course, what should they do?
Section 8.
Oh, we're nice and quiet now. Must be we have the Mondays.
All right.
Looks like they're required to contact the Director of Accessibility and Health Promotion. There's a number there on that particular page.
Yes. Yep. Perfect. So this is also should be in your syllabus as well, in the syllabus template, and Ryan will again show you that piece. So the student needs to contact the director, and that person's changed over time, but you can still reach them. via this phone number. And the student, it's their responsibility that they take care of that, and they have to give you documentation of it. And as this says, it's not retroactive, so they need to make sure they take care of it at the very beginning of your course. And then finally, what are the policies for all students, faculty, and staff related to communication?
Everything has to be done with the Notre Dame email system, and you have to follow correct etiquette.
Perfect, Michelle. Thank you. Yeah, so this is really important. And I know that sometimes students are like, oh, it's easier if you send it to my personal email, or, you know, I don't check my Notre Dame email. Well, we have to use the Notre Dame email. It's a security issue, and it needs to go through that. So all faculty and staff and students should be using that. And I'm sure we've all heard, my email's not working, I can't get into it. They need to contact the help desk and get that fixed. And then there's also, you know, I'm sure some of you have used the self-service portal on the web, the Notre Dame website. You can reset your password that way too. But please, please, please make sure students and you also are using the Notre Dame email. A lot of times too, if students are using outside emails, it goes to their junk mail, and now we can't get their emails. And then, you know, they have an excuse, oh, I sent it to you. So Notre Dame email.
I have a question for you now.
Sure.
Dr. Duprius. So a few times, well, and I don't know if it would be a moot point now because so much is going to be virtual, but because I was teaching in Baltimore and my students were coming from over the bridge or 2.5 hours, sometimes they would call me on my I would give them my cell phone because of the problem sometimes with email. Is that still going to be allowed, or, you know,
yeah, I know
our other email?
First, if you use your personal cell phone, I mean, that's fine. I give them that too, because most of us, even full-time faculty, aren't in our offices all the time.
Right.
So it's much easier, yeah, to do that.
Okay.
That's fine. Yep, it's whatever you're comfortable with. Some people don't want to get that information out, but that's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, so that was a smattering of some policies from the handbook. We'll get into more detail on the other agenda items in a moment, but I'm going to, turn it over to Dr. Kathy Doherty and let her chat with us about some important information.
All right, thank you. I was trying to be fancy with this virtual background, but I'm going to take it off because the sun is doing strange things here. I want to welcome all of you to the orientation, and many of you have more years of experience at Notre Dame than I do, as I'm just assumed the position of dean a little less than a month ago now, although it feels like I certainly hit the ground running in the middle of all the COVID things going on, as well as the startup of the fall semester coming on us. But I know that I can echo Julianne's words to you by I'm reiterating how important the work that each of you do is. I've been an adjunct myself for probably 25 years, an associate faculty member here. And I know how important the work that you do is. And many times the strength and rigor of what you do is not always as appreciated as it should be. None of us teach as associate faculty because we're going to get rich by doing it, right? We teach because we love our subject matter, we love working with the students, we feel committed to the institution and the mission of the institution. So please know that those of us here in the School of Education, as well as at Notre Dame, really do deeply appreciate the work that you do here, and it's critical to our success. And that's why all of the items that Julianne and Ryan and Lisa are going to be discussing with you today are so important, because each of you contributes not only to the success and the graduation of our students as they go out into the field and into their careers to be successful, but also to our ability to continue with our national accreditation and our state certification. So these little details that seem very picky are so important to all of that. A pet peeve of mine is the Notre Dame email, and how difficult it is sometimes for students to reach faculty if they're not able to reach them through their email, or and don't have an accurate email to reach them. It is very important in terms of security for our students as well, so encourage you to do that. This meeting is probably a little bit more simple than it would have been otherwise, where we were originally going to talk to you about hybrid delivery of some of your courses. As you know from the email that went out from President Yam on Friday, all of our courses will be fully online with very few exceptions here at Notre Dame, and certainly all of the School of Education classes. So if you were teaching a hybrid or an on-campus class, that has now will be transitioned to a fully online course. I know for some of us that's not the most optimal situation, but we've demonstrated very successfully last spring and over the summer that we can teach successfully online, and that we can, our students can learn successfully. So, you know, it's definitely the new normal. All of us are facing challenges in our personal and professional lives, and our students certainly are. But, you know, a smooth transition to an online delivery will be critical to the success of their experience in your class and also here at Notre Dame. So hang in there, and if you're like me, you take it one day at a time as you're trying to navigate these new waters. We do have supports available to you in terms of resources for teaching online, and you'll hear a little bit more about that today. And then, you know, moving forward, not only for the fall semester, but into the spring semester, if you have challenges or concerns or just things that you want to share, please feel free to reach out to me directly, because I like to hear from all of you. I'm sorry I don't have the opportunity to meet each of you face to face right now, but one of these days we'll be sitting in the same room together having an orientation. But thank you again for everything that you do, and for taking the time this morning to spend with us, and to go through the handbook to the scavenger hunt, which is always fun. And I hope you have a really wonderful fall semester, and I do hope that you and your families and those you keep close to you are staying well and healthy. And again, reach out as needed. We love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. So I know, just to piggyback on what Kathy was saying, those of you who are strictly online anyway, there's no changes. But I know some of you had the hybrid listed, and so you still have, it's online, but you still have your day and time associated with that, because I know some of you wanted to meet synchronously with some of your students. So that, as far as I know, is still in effect. So that shouldn't be an issue. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is just the syllabus template. Ryan is gonna, when he goes over one of our resources for you all, he'll show you where that's located, just to make sure that you're using the most current version, because every semester it seems like there's more information sent to us, and we have to update that to stay within regulations. Also, please remember that the beginning of every semester, you're sending your most current syllabus for your courses to Dr. Doherty, because we need to keep those on file for our national accreditation. Okay. Roster verification and final grades. I know that people are always trying to figure out, when do I do this and when are things due? So there, this year, which is really nice, there is on the academic calendar, everything is broken out by the different dates for the different terms for the semester. That tells you when your roster verification is due, and then also when your grades are due. And Ryan will show you that link as well on our website. Book orders, usually, you know, I think everyone knows how to do that. We get reminders from the bookstore a couple times a semester. And then if you, and also there's a link on our page for that as well. If you do not have any materials, you still have to go in and check no materials for your course, or else they'll harass us. So we want to make sure. Also, it helps, I mean, it's good because you want our students to know that there are no materials listed. we talked about chalk and wire, netiquette guide. So now that we're all going to be going online, we've developed a netiquette guide, and Ryan's going to show you that also. It's also for our faculty and our students. So we want to make sure that that is posted on our Jewel pages, so students are aware of what their responsibility is as an online learner. Jewel cross-listed courses and issues. Some of you may be teaching courses that are cross-listed, and sometimes on Jewel, there's an issue with the courses being put together, and so you have two different pages, which doesn't make any sense at all. And sometimes you only see some of your students on one page and not all of your students on the roster. If that happens, it's a pretty easy fix. You just have to contact Krista Holder-Smith, which I think most of you know. She's our faculty resource person, and she will fix that for you. And then the last thing that I have is the specific courses and program coordinators. We put together a list for you all on our webpage that lists all of the program coordinators with their email addresses. So if you have a specific question about a course that you're teaching, you can reach out to that person specifically and individually so that they can help you with any, chalk and wire issues you might have, or if you want a different syllabus or you want to run something past them, they're the person that you would contact because they're the one that's ultimately responsible for writing up reports for our accreditation. So it's up to Ryan now. Yay.
Okay, so in the chat feature, the very first item in the chat box was a link to our Notre Dame SOE. So this website kind of started as like a project for the operations committee to try and help just not only just the full-time faculty, but most with the associate faculty. So it was an all-in-one stop to where we could help you keep all this stuff in just one place, so it was easy to access, because we know how difficult sometimes information is to locate, especially in such a diverse program like the School of Education is. There's so many different programs, so many different courses going on, even so many different locations, even though we're kind of just about all online now for this semester. It's just easier just to have a one-stop shop for everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit share screen. So just give me 1 second to get this popped up here. So, and it's what happens when you have too many screens. It acts like a tab in your brain. Okay, so share screen. And there we go. It should be coming at your way. So let me bring this on over. Shrink some real estate here. Okay, so this is the main page, and as you can see, here is the address. And again, it's in the, I can't make that part any bigger. It's right here, the address. If you need to access it again, go to the chat feature. It should be at the very bottom. It should have a little chat feature. You can click on the link and access it. So this is broken up, just a typical website with a lot of different pages. It starts off on the main page with the conceptual framework, which Julianne just went over, RSVP, and that you all were nice enough to find. Here is the handbook that you are accessing, the one that, again, Julianne sent you through email. I put it up here as a embedded document that you are also able to download. So if you just don't remember, you lost it in your email or something like that, you can always just come to this site to find the actual handbook. And if you want to download it, you can always just click on the link down here. The School of Education has a bunch of dispositions, which, again, they really almost augment the conceptual framework. These are the things that we're really looking for as an all School of Education, as all faculty, as all students. We're trying to build up these different dispositions, and a lot of these are, again, absolutely next generation dispositions: collaboration, cultural responsiveness, flexibility, all the things that we're looking for. So those dispositions are going to become extremely important as we enter our accreditation phase here. So the School of Education, so there are some assessment protocols. Now, there is a philosophy assessment that was based on the 9 principles of good practice for assessing student learning. This is through the American Association for Higher Education. I won't read them to you. You're more than welcome to read them over yourself. There is a grading scale. So we're typically used to, if we were ever in high school, you know, we'd go, oh, we know that a 90 to 100 is an A, and so forth. Well, with in the higher education, they have different grading scales. So here is the graduate level, and here is the undergraduate level grade scales. So just please be cognizant of that as you enter grades, and you know, obviously as you work in your grade book and so forth. Okay, so rubrics. So the School of Education has a lot of different assignments, and we try to utilize rubrics for as many as we can. And this kind of works in unison with the chalk and wire, which I'll show you in a moment. In the past, we used to use a scale of 1 to 4 as the performance levels. We have now, since the beginning, since the summer of about 2019, we've been in a transition phase where we've been going from 1 to 4 to 0 to 3. So this way, if a student doesn't do an assignment, they're not just going to get a 1 and be able to skirt with a little bit of, you know, a little bit of credit. That you now are able to do something called unacceptable. And of course, proficient and exemplary, also, again, they're really the ones that are considered like a passing grade. Again, we don't get into exactly how you would translate this into a grade into your course, but for assessment purposes, we have to collect this data. So please make sure that you're using these performance level descriptions. Also, as you are working with your program coordinators, or in the future, if you have ideas or questions about a rubric, please work with the person that is responsible for the program. Obviously, you want to have a rubric that is measuring things that are obviously measurable and observable. So just think about that in the future. For the School of Education, the program coordinators, here is the list. There are a couple to be determined because, you know, as things change, we are starting to switch some people around. So there's the contact information. As soon as we have a little bit more information about any of these vacancies or anything like that, we will update this. So you're more than welcome to come back to it. If not, you can always email Julianne or even myself. I don't mind, and we'll try and connect you to whoever needs to be contacted for whatever your needs are. Okay, so that's the home page. The next one I'm going to slip over to is essential documents and templates. The reason being is this is where you find your syllabus template. Now, a lot of faculty will share their template, their syllabus with you. And, you know, I think that's an absolutely wonderful practice. However, you have to realize that sometimes there's different iterations from semester to semester. Some of the information becomes outdated and antiquated. So what you want to do is make sure that if you have somebody that gives you a rubric that, you know, you don't know when the last time it was revised, please use the syllabus template right here. It was updated last in 2018. I'm sure it'll be updated again shortly, but again, go here and we'll give you the essential documents that you need. So if you click on this, it'll allow you to download it right like this. It'll allow you to open it, and then obviously you can then download it if you want to using icons. So let me hit the back button here. Close that out. There we go. Okay. Down here also, some of you teach content areas that require our SOE lesson plan template. Again, here are the templates right here. There's the rubric. And also, if you're interested in, I'm going to show you the Netiquette page. If you are interested in actually using it as part of your course, like putting this into as a policy into your course, there are the document versions right here. I'll go over Netiquette in just a minute. So anyway, that's where to get the syllabus template. I am going to next to Web Advisor. Reason being is Julianne had mentioned about, okay, well, it's time to do the grades or it is time to do roster verification. You're like, where the heck do I go? So these directions actually start you off on the main Notre Dame web page and actually walks you how to get to WebAdvisor. The login information should have been shared with you as a faculty member. You should have access to WebAdvisor. If not, you can always contact, again, the help desk. It's 532-5200. Or you can just email them at helpdesk. So if you start at NotreDameNDM.edu, you'll go to faculty and staff. You will also then find all these different resources, and one of them is WebAdvisor. When you get to WebAdvisor, it gives you a few choices. Obviously, you have to log in. And as you log in, you enter what term you want to focus in on, whether it's fall 2020, or in the past, if it was spring, you would enter that information, hit submit, and it pops up all of your different courses. It's going to give you a choice to either do roster verification or final grades. Obviously, you would do final grades when you're ready to enter your final grade. For roster verification, again, this process is used with financial aid. It's used to guarantee that everybody has technically shown up to your class. So roster verification, you go there and you identify any students that have not shown up to your class. They haven't participated. Typically, roster verification online is usually done like the beginning of the second week of the course. This way, we kind of allow people to enter the course. Sometimes there's a few stragglers with late registration. We try to welcome them in as best as we can, and we try to get them caught up. However, roster verification really should be done by the beginning of the second week. So this way, your list is finalized, your student list is finalized, and you are able to do this. As you enter roster verification, you'll go in, and it's basically just a gigantic list where you just basically enter if they have shown up, and you enter that and hit save. I can't really show you a screenshot of it because then you'd see my students pick names, and it doesn't always work out showing you a screenshot of it. If you don't do this properly and a student maybe came in late or something like that, you want to make sure that this is an extremely important process, so please make sure to follow it. You will get emails, and you don't want to get in their radar of being somebody who does that. Okay, so final grades.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Real quick too, sorry. So just remember, a lot of you have done this before, but make sure it's a two-step process. You hit submit, and then you have to hit OK. So I know some of you have gotten emails from myself or Gary in the past saying, oh, please, submit your roster verification. You're like, oh, I did it. But if you don't hit OK on the next screen, then it doesn't actually go through. So just a reminder on that.
And finally, let's see, as we keep on going for final grades, they're typically due within 3 business days. And again, they're if if the policy changes, we'll let you know. But it's typically you try and get your grades in as promptly as possible, and you'll submit them following much the same process that you would for roster verification. And right down there, as you go through here, there is a little WebAdvisor quiz we would like you to take for some of the important sections for WebAdvisors. There'll be a couple other ones as I keep on going through. So anyway, that's what roster verification. Let's see. There's another.
While we're on WebAdvisor real quick too, I know a lot of you reach out and have questions as to who the contact person would be for your students' advisors. This is also where you would find that. So if you are on your WebAdvisor roster and you click on your student's name, it actually brings up their information, like additional contact information if they have other email addresses, their phone number, and also who their course or their program advisor is. So you can reach out to them directly.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to switch over to associate faculty. There is a link right up there. This is really, I try to take, I try to put myself in the shoes of an associate faculty member, like, okay, I just ended up getting a position. What do I need to know? I want it on one page. Let me try to do that the best I can. So that's what I ended up trying to do here. Number one is the academic calendar link, which was just recently added. There is also the process for ordering books at the bookstore. There is the contact information for the bookstore. Their hours, which has changed since COVID hit, so I do warn you about that. There's also the process on how to use the online portal for ordering books or identifying what books you want to use. Remember, even if you are not using a textbook for your course, you have to indicate that there's no text material required for this course, and then submit it. I will say this, I've used Faculty Inlights over the last couple of years. It's a very easy site to navigate. However, here are the directions on how to select your course, how to add your materials, both ISBN numbers, and if you have used a book and previously, it does have a good memory that you can actually go and find books that you've adopted in the past. Chalk and Wire. Okay, so Chalk and Wire is our assessment platform. We use that as for accreditation. We use it as our data warehouse. We use it. It is kind of like our school memory. It's just about everything. We use that for just about anything when it comes to analytics. It is absolutely crucial that if you have assignments in Chalk and Wire in your course, that your students are fulfilling that requirement, that they have an account, that they are submitting their work, and you're assessing it through Chalk and Wire. We don't want anything being assessed outside of Chalk and Wire that needs to be assessed in Chalk and Wire. If you have questions on what is done in Chalk and Wire, I can show you. But a lot of times your syllabus really indicates the assignments that are required in Chalk and Wire. For ease, if your students are like, well, I'm new to Chalk and Wire, they do receive directions on how to do that. The directions also include like basically it's a web video, it's a screencast of actually how to set up their accounts and so forth. However, if you need access to give them resources, you're more than welcome. There's a student e-portfolio directions here. I think one of these may end up being let's see, both of these links will work for you. And if you are new to Chalk and Wire and you need help with learning how to assess inside of Chalk and Wire, you may reach out to me. However, there are also assessor directions here. This will take you to a page that'll explain the whole entire process. You do need setup if you are new and you do have a Chalk and Wire and you do require to assess in Chalk and Wire. We do have to set you up with an assessor account. Just email me after this, and I'll be happy to connect you with Madeline Ball, who can set you up with an assessor account in Chalk and Wire. Here is the ePortfolio policy. I will say this, that if you hear the term campus labs, so Chalk and Wire was recently purchased by Campus Labs, I think about 2 years ago. They still use the term Chalk and Wire, but Campus Labs is now the parent company. And I think they're trying to rebrand themselves again. So just to warn you, if you hear a different language, we'll try and put that information here. So we break up our Chalk and Wire into multiple table of contents. So in general coursework, which is the very first one, the SOE general coursework one, those are really the big core courses that address some undergraduate and graduate level courses. Students have to create this one. They have to. All students do. There's a second e-portfolio, and students have a choice here. If they are becoming initially certified for the very first time, they must create an internship and methods course. If they are trying to acquire an advanced degree that requires a practicum, then they would create a practicum course portfolio. Again, the directions that I give the students address all this information and kind of walks through the process. The policy is a part of the syllabus template, so it's important to read it, but you don't have to memorize it, and obviously you don't have to make sure that this is a part of your syllabus because it's there. And if you don't see it, please make sure you again go back to the syllabus template. If your students don't have an account, this is very important. Again, this is one of those important first week things, is they have to acquire a Chalk and Wire account. Now this is this is outside of Notre Dame. They actually purchase an account. And this was actually before COVID hit, we actually secured an online method for paying, which makes life a lot easier. There is the link to acquire it. They can also go the traditional method by sending a check or money into the School of Education. That is going to be a lot slower of a process with a lot less people on campus. So my suggestion is really try and push the online method for payment. So this way that they can acquire their Chalk and Wire accounts quickly, because again, COVID's really slowed us down a lot of different processes. The online pay is there; it's 24/7. And again, Madeline Ball, our assistant professor, she will help with the setting up the student accounts. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to Madeline Ball. Just again, additional information about Chalk and Wire. If there is an issue in Chalk and Wire, you've been notified by a student, or you've gone in and you've had issues, please contact Madeline Ball. There is her email address. If a student says that their account is expired, these accounts typically last 5 years, which is not a big problem. But if you have a student here that historically has been here for a while, they may have gotten their undergraduate, they're coming back for their graduate, whatever, they are able to renew it for a cheaper fee. I don't have those fees with me. You'd have to contact, again, Madeline Ball. Assessor training, again, you can contact myself or Madeline. That is to teach you how to use Chalk and Wire to assess content. And if you are a program coordinator, that you require data from Chalk and Wire, there is a breakdown of the people to contact and what programs they kind of oversee and help. Let me see. Okay, into Joule. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of a background information on Joule, Joule is being phased out, as in Joule is as of Winterim 2021. We're going to be switching over to Brightspace it's a learning management system from Canada. It's exciting because it offers a lot more functionality, a lot more tools than our current Joule currently does. However, we are using it in the fall, and I have been assured, in fact, it was part of our contract, is that our Joule courses will be migrated over into Brightspace. I'm not guaranteeing the quality, but I am saying that it will be. So Joule, when you first log into Joule, you come onto a dashboard, okay, which typically has your course overview. I will say the image is a little outdated, but generally has the same information. Usually in the center is your course listings, and if you need to access prior courses from the past, it would be over on the left on the navigation. To enter the course, you just click on the course and it opens up. If you have to edit or change the course, if you want to add content like your syllabus, or if you want to put contact information, or you need to add your presentation materials or your readings or directions, there is a button on the top right-hand side of your course page that's called Course Editing. You need to turn it on. So this way it becomes a more dynamic website that you're actually going to be able to change. This site right here will give you more specific information on how to change and how to do things. It's, again, all the directions are here. I'm not going to go through verbatim everything, but as you can see, it gives you a lot of content, a lot of information on how to do the things that you're going to need to do, especially since we're converting to online. For setting up your Joule gradebook, again, I have another presentation right here that kind of runs you through all the screenshots on how to set it up and how to properly prepare it. Grading in Joule, the nice thing is as you set up an assessment spot to have students submit work, You can also grade it, which makes it a lot easier because you can add points and add feedback, narrative-based feedback, which is helpful. Okay. So that is the associate faculty section. So I kind of went over how to do book orders. I talked about chalk and wire assignments briefly. Again, chalk and wire, the link for that information will be included on the student directions. It also is included on the assessor directions. It is chalkandwire.com/NDM. Get there. Let me go to the Netiquette guide. I'm starting to run a little low on time. I am just going to show you the Netiquette site for faculty and staff. I am not going to read through this all for you, but it's helpful for those proper, again, behaviors that we expect of our faculty and staff as they are working online, both in synchronous and asynchronous formats. And if you need a Word version of this, it is, again, in Essential Documents. I'm going to now, at this time, let's see, Netiquette. I'm now, at this time, going to turn this over to Dr. Lisa Pout so she can talk about EdTPA. So let me stop sharing. And take it away, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about EdTPA and the lesson plan template. This is going to be most relevant for those of you who teach initial certification students. So some of you have graduate students. It might not be quite as relevant, but we do have a tab for EdTPA, and it gives a little bit of background. Basically, it's a teacher performance assessment, and we can see that many states have adopted it. We have started phasing it in, but pretty soon, in the next couple years, it's going to be consequential in Maryland, meaning they need to pass it. We're not quite at that point yet, but we're working really hard to make sure that we have passing scores, which means there's some things that we need to put in place and that we'll need you to put in place if you're teaching these initial certification students. So you can see there's background on it. There is a different EdTPA handbook for different areas. So for example, you know, there's elementary math one, there's secondary math, there's physical education. So all the different areas that we certainly certify in, special ed and all of that. This goes through a little bit of the background for on EdTPA. So if you are interested in reading a little bit more about it, you can find that here. I'm going to go down and show you this graphic here. You know, commonly in education, we talk about the cycle of planning, instructing, and assessment. And basically what they have to complete is a 3-task portfolio. And typically task 1 is where they're planning. So this is where they're writing a unit, they're lesson planning. But one of the interesting things they need to do, and this is true for the other tasks as well, is they need to write what they call a commentary. And in that, they need to justify why they've planned the way they have, what they've done, and really give reasoning for it. And throughout that, they also need to thread in some theory or research, you know, and cite some research and give the justification for why they've done what they've done. There's a really big emphasis in EdTPA on planning for individual student needs. You know, so because I have this child with this IEP, that's why I did this. Or because I have these 2 English language learners, that's why I did this. So hopefully you can think about some things in your course and ways that you can have them, you know, either think about the research they're doing and the implications, or think about the children they're working with and the instruction, or kind of weave that all together. So typically task 1, they're planning their lessons. They are then justifying why they did what they did in their commentary. Task 2 is where they're actually teaching. So they do this during their internship semester. So they actually have a group of students they're working with. But again, in the coursework that comes before, we're needing to do and think about what we can do to prepare them for this. For the instruction, they actually video record themselves teaching. and then they analyze their teaching. And again, they're given a commentary where they justify and explain why they did what they did. They point out specific times in the video, you know, how they built rapport with the students, and they point that out with a timestamp. And they're actually quite limited in the amount of footage they can submit. So they might record, you know, or they plan 3 days or 4 days of instruction, but they're really only submitting like 20 minutes of video footage and justifying, and really having to capture some key things in that time, but really justifying why they did what they did. And then task 3 is an assessment task. So this is where they're analyzing student work, looking at student work, and then also there's an emphasis on feedback, what feedback they would give to them. And that's where we can really think about the feedback we give, you know, and modeling that high quality feedback. But then of course, if you have any, if it's relevant in your course, you know, that you could do an activity where they give feedback or analyze student work. I know that's something I have added a lot more into my course, and it's really enhanced the course, that we have discussions on student work and where would we go next instruction and that type of thing. So that's kind of the gist of it. And there's more text here that you can refer back to if you want. They are scored on a 5-point rubric. Let me get this out of the way. You can see the rubrics over here. So it goes from 1, meaning not ready, to 5, a highly accomplished beginner. But really a 3 right in the center is what we tend to say to shoot for. Not that we shouldn't go for the 4 or 5. I can tell you it's really hard to get a 4 or 5. These are sent to Pearson for national scoring. It's not something we're scoring on our own, but we do have some faculty, including myself, who've gone through the national scorer training. So it really is a rigorous assessment. It really is, though, a much more authentic assessment than just taking a praxis test. And so ultimately it'll replace one of the praxis tests that they've historically had to take. So let's see what else is down here. This just talks a little bit about chalk and wire. They do submit through chalk and wire, although you won't have to worry about that because that would happen during their internship process. And we've actually just recently added a new 1-credit EdTPA course that's going to help guide them through the completion and submission. But like I said, we are having to do more kind of back mapping to make sure that we're hitting on some of these things within coursework. So you may hear, you know, from your coordinator, you know, coming up, obviously not for fall, oh, we need to add an assignment to prepare them for EdTPA. Maybe based on that cycle that I showed you, you might think about some even class assignments that you could, you know, focus on giving feedback, things like that. Or even, I mean, even just having them record themselves, that can be a challenge in and of itself. If we can get them used to watching themselves on video and analyzing their teaching, that can be a helpful activity as well. So there is down here a PowerPoint that is intended for students to go through. We'll take them through this. We'll have an orientation type thing for them, but we've provided it here for you just in case you want a little bit more information than what you've gotten today on EdTPA. So I wanted to show you that. And then I do also want to show you, Ryan took us into essential documents and templates, and he mentioned the lesson plan. So this was really developed once EdTPA came into play. So if you are teaching a course that has a lesson planning requirement, we would ask that you use this template. It was designed to really make sure that they're prepared to answer questions that they have on EdTPA. So you can see it's a little bit more extensive than your typical lesson plan template, but there really is a reason for it. So we really do want you to use it with them. And then also just kind of back us up on the need for this. type thing. It does have 3 sections. So here they're putting their student focus standards, you know, name of content standards. Are they using Common Core? Are they using Next Gen Science standards? What are they using? And then they put their standard there. For teacher-focused professional standards, we really just wanted them referencing so that they would be aware of Danielson or InTask, you know, whatever professional standards you're highlighting in your course. You can really decide, but they would cite those there. Then we have some typical lesson plan things, you know, essential questions, lesson objective. We put the formative and summative early on just because we wanted to highlight the practice of beginning with the end in mind, you know, with that summative assessment. One of the things that was recently added, how is it graded? So for their EdTPA, they do have to have assessment criteria. So, and a lot of the students I notice will put, it will be scored based on accuracy. And we're like, well, no, what's the key look like? How many points will they get for each section? Is there a rubric? If so, what's the rubric look like? So we really want them to think about how it will be graded in advance. And then we do have a section on academic language. One of the key things here is, you know, a lot of times they just want to hit on vocabulary. Okay, so vocabulary symbols, but what's the support? So what's the teacher going to do for these things to help their students be successful? So it's not enough just to say, oh, we're going to talk about add-ins and sums and things like that. They need to say, well, how are they going to help? Is there going to be a word wall? What will there be? Same with, and then we have some language objectives. This is really helpful for English language learners, and it is a part of EdTPA, where they select a function like describe or compare or explain, and then what's the support? How will the teacher help scaffold the learning for the students? And then either syntax or discourse. They would need to include something of how they're going to help with that as well. We are planning, I know some of these, you know, sometimes we look at this and go, huh? We are working on some recorded sessions where we would go through in more detail each of these sections. So if you feel like you need a little bit more, you know, help with, well, I don't know what even they would write in that section, you can either contact me, Dr. Snyder, the EdTPA people, the coordinator for your program. There are a lot of us that would be willing to help out. So then I mentioned also there's a real emphasis on I think planning based on the needs of your students. So that's what this whole section 2 is about. Okay, because of their age and grade level, what are the instructional implications? Because of their specific prior knowledge, implications. Based on their everyday experiences or their language background. So this is in preparation for that EdTPA. So they're getting some of that and thinking through some of that before they actually get to do the performance-based assessment. And then here we have specific individual or small group needs. So this is where they would cite what they're going to do for their IEP students, ELL, behavioral or social concerns, any students who are below grade level, as well as any who are performing above grade level. And then we get into multicultural considerations, and same thing, it needs to be implications for this specific lesson. One of the things that you'll find is that they're overly general in some of these areas. We really want it based on the specific lesson. And then now we get into kind of what we consider the, you know, more traditional or typical part of the lesson, where they list their materials, technology. We really want them integrating technology into lessons in some way. We also want them to consider management, how they'll manage materials, how they'll manage transitions, how they'll manage behavior. And then we get into our typical lesson of the beginning, development of new learning, enrichment, remediation, and then closure. For the section 4, this is a reflection portion. So one of the things you'll notice is they complete this after they've taught the lesson. So if you're teaching like a methods course like I do, where they don't actually have the opportunity to teach the lesson, they do not need to complete section 4. They can leave it blank, you can take it off, whatever you want. Okay, so this is here. There's also a rubric, although we're gonna have to check because I'm not sure if that's been updated to the 0 to 3 or the 1 to 4, so we'll check on that. If it is required that their lesson plan goes in chalk and wire, the rubric's right in there and you can score it on there. So, you know, if you can just please use this template if they are writing lesson plans in your course, that's really helpful. That's really helpful. And then also just think about some of the things I talked about, with the fact that they need to integrate research, the assessment, those types of things. To think about if there are any assignments or class things that you can do on that. That would be helpful. I think that's it for EdTPA. So back to Julianne, I guess. I guess I need to stop sharing.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate what Lisa said. Even if you're not teaching lesson planning in your classes, you can still take components of that lesson plan and integrate it into different assignments in your class to really just highlight those pieces and help strengthen what our students are doing, no matter what level they're at, whether they're getting an advanced degree or they're getting initially certified. And one more thing I just want to share. So Ryan had shown you the academic calendar. So I just want to share that again because that is really important. There it is. Let's see. Because they literally break out for us this year. When the terms begin. Some of you may be a little confused when you're seeing term C and your students might be searching for courses. So the School of Education has our own special term because we're starting our classes after Labor Day. So that is term C. So even though you may have so if your full length class is term C, or you may have term D, which is a different time frame, just be aware of that we're not in the typical A-B terms if you're teaching 8-week classes. So I know that there's been some confusion with that. So when you look at this, it talks about there's a roster verification. So this is for women's college only. If you are teaching a women's college course, then they start before Labor Day. But I think I think everyone on here is teaching our graduate students or CAUSE students. So for term A, your roster verification is September 4th through the 7th through that week. You can see they break it down for us, which is nice this year. So there's no question as to when you should be completing your roster verification. And then at the end, it gives us the final grades. So term A grades are due the 28th, term D grades the 28th. So term D is again a special School of Ed term. And then at the very end, we have when grades are due as well. So it's nice to actually have this because I feel like I'm emailing the registrar all the time asking for when different grades are due. Okay, so with that, we'll open it up to any questions that you all may have. Anything that may have come up for you that you need clarification on.
I have a question about the rubric for the lesson plan. Has the rubric been updated for that template?
Yes. Yes, the rubric was updated once the lesson plan template was revised.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So I'm teaching the reading assessment course, which formerly was, I believe, face-to-face course, so it's online now. Do I need to contact Chrissa Holdersmith or someone else to actually load that onto Joule, or am I able to actually go into Joule myself and put a brand new course in there?
You can put your own course in there. That's fine, yeah. And I think, Ryan, they're not up yet, right? The shells, she said it's like a sandbox right now. The real shells aren't up.
I don't think I saw them yet, but the process, if you want to bring course content from a previous semester into a new one, there's there's an import feature, or you can go to the so what it'll do is you'll go to the blank shell when it's up. You'll go to the blank course website, and what you'll do is you'll click the button called import in your admin block. You'll go find whatever the course is that you want to grab information and content from. You hit import, and then it will bring, and then of course it'll give you all these different functions or items that you can bring over to this empty shell, and it will populate all that content. No student data goes over, so your gradebook will just have empty blank assignments. It won't have any old data from previously, but if you bring over your old syllabus, you're going to want to delete that or update it or whatever. So it's going to do a lot of that big bulk import function. So,
but if you haven't taught the course before, because Kathy, this is a new one for you, right?
Yes, it is.
So
okay,
you would
then
develop it on your own. You wouldn't import.
Okay. No, yeah. And just looking at what was there before, it's very different than what you do online anyway. But I know when I had done the course last year, Ryan was kind enough to help me get that ported over so that I could have a toe in. So I just wasn't sure whether I needed to, take what I'm developing myself, or whether I needed to sort of grab someone else's info and modify it.
okay.
No, you don't have to. But there have been instances where if the instructor gives permission, who's been teaching the course, they teach another section of it. If they give permission to Krissa, then Krissa can then import that information over, so you have a starting point. But yeah,
I'll talk to Krissa about it just to see. All right, but thank you very much. I appreciate the info.
Michelle.
Yes, thank you. Ryan, I don't know, this question may be for you since you're in charge of the early childhood component. I teach the early childhood methods. How do I determine which assignment should be going into chalk and wire? Do I talk with you about it? Is there a number of assignments that should be submitted to that from the students, or is that something that you and I would talk about later?
Okay, so so right now I put my name up there, but I think I'm being transitioned out of there. It is kind of a flux.
Okay.
If you okay, so most of the initial certifications students, they take, which is early childhood elementary education, they take those all those core assignments, tasks that they do during their internship. There is one
okay, so I don't really have to do that.
I mean, there are I don't know what course you teach. I don't know what the what exactly, if there's something in there that has to go in for chalk and wire as early childhood, it should say.
It's not in there. There's nothing in there, Ryan.
Okay, then,
Yeah.
then you should.
So I don't need to do it, Dr. Dupree? Okay.
You should
No, I would still be doing lesson planning, which I'm sure you do with that.
Yeah.
Utilize our lesson plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
And I
sound like
used
there's
all
any-
of the forms from Notre Dame consistently for all 3 years.
Yeah, I checked the chalk and wire index, and there was a table of contents, and there's nothing for early childhood.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Lori, did you need a copy of the rubric? Oh. Lori? Oh, you're on mute. Did you need a copy of the lesson plan rubric?
No, I'm good, thank you. My husband was asking about lunch. That's why I may have.
Oh, no, that's
I
good.
was-
Yeah, make sure that you had access to that. Yeah, okay.
Thank
Get your
you.
lunch.
I have 2 questions. It's Allison. First, is there additional training or PD for how to utilize Joule?
Yeah, please be on the lookout for that schedule. I just got back from vacation, so I'm actually trying to set those dates up with my family and right now to try it so I can sit down. But yes, it'll probably be next week, and I'll do multiple sessions.
Okay. And then if you do offer synchronous sessions with students, I believe you use Zoom, correct?
That's correct.
How do you set it up with students? Does it still go through Joule, or do you invite them? Like, how does it?
You wouldn't. Okay, so this is how I do it. So what you would do is, first off, please make sure you reach out to Catherine Doherty just to mention that you need a Zoom account if you don't have one already. Zoom has a basic account that will allow, I think it's so many different people, a classroom worth of people, I think up to 40 minutes. But if you need the pro account, which will allow, I think, up to 300 people for, I don't know, 8 hours or something like that. It's ridiculously long. If you need one of those types of accounts, you have to reach out to Dr. Doherty and request it.
Okay.
One of the trainings I was going to offer is how to facilitate and use Zoom for synchronous sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so that the way that you would set it up is when you're in Zoom, you would schedule your Zoom meeting. They call meetings. You would set it up, and it's going to give you an invitation, which that you would email that invitation out to your students.
Right. I just didn't know if for security reasons, like, are you going through their note, like the same thing as you have to use their Notre Dame email accounts,
Yes.
and then are you setting it up through your Notre Dame? I just didn't know if there was a certain, like, I mean, in my other position as a Baltimore County school teacher, like you're only going in through our platform. So I was just wondering like what the way in was.
Yeah, so Zoom actually has its Notre Dame type of like subsystem.
Okay.
So when you use Zoom through our accounts, it is
Okay.
technically through Notre Dame.
Okay.
So that type of data, which I think you're referring to, is safe and secure.
Okay.
When you're giving that invitation out, send it to their Notre Dame email. You can post it in Joule, but that I would more directly contact them through email.
Okay.
Joule has an all email feature that you can actually email your students. That's
Right. So you
an
could
easy way
like
to
email
do it.
the group.
Yep.
Okay.
So you could do it
And
two
I would
ways.
attend both. If you
Yeah.
offer them, I'll be there.
This was my big thing I had to get done today, and I also have a
Yeah.
presentation on tomorrow. But
No, I get it.
Just be on the lookout for that schedule today. I'm trying to get it done
Okay.
today before I go to the pool at 4. So,
Which is important.
yep, it
Okay,
is.
cool.
It is. Michelle's raising her hand.
Yes, thank you. My question is this. So I have a Zoom account through Notre Dame, but I usually don't teach until January. Will it still be active if I'm asked to teach in January? Or is it forever, as long as I'm an adjunct?
Forever. They have been repurposing.
Okay.
Just to warn you, so if you're not teaching in the fall, chances are it's going to be repurposed, and what it'll do is it's not you're not going to be erased. It's just going to go to a basic account, which is still not bad. It's you still get, I think, up to 100 participants, but
Right. I have my own personal account that I use. I'm a tutor as well, and I set up my own account for that. But usually I was not meeting with the Notre Dame students because of, it's a long time to be on. But if I'm asked to teach in January, I would just contact Carissa to reactivate it, or
so you'll get another email. So each semester we get asked by one of the associate vice presidents who needs what for technology and for Zoom licenses, and then she looks at who needs to be repurposed and who needs their own. So you'll get information on that. So don't worry about that right now, and then it'll go through myself or Ryan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
no problem.
Sure. And just to give you all a heads up, if you are doing synchronous with the Zoom, you are not required to be on there the full time. You can definitely just use it to check in with students and do a couple of activities. It's, by no means do you need to teach synchronously for your 3 or 4 hour period.
I have a quick question about that. I teach legal issues. Been doing it a long time. If I wanted to do that, is that an expectation that the students would have to meet at 5 and then we'd go till 7, 8, whatever? Because it was a lecture-based course with group activities, of course, but a lot of content and legal issues that has to be delivered. And the other method, the asynchronous method, did not work so well. The feedback indicated that, and I want to do all live teaching. I'm waiting for Kathy to get back to me with the Zoom account. Is that the expectation that they would?
So yeah, I mean, you can, again, that's your prerogative. If you want to teach the whole time, you can. I'm just saying that you don't feel like you have to, but if your course, which I know yours was scheduled hybrid, so you did have a time, and a specific time and day that you met, then the expectation is the students are available during that time, and you can teach synchronously for the entire time period.
Okay, great. Quick question, this real fast. There's no changes to chalk and wire for legal issues? There were still no artifacts?
No.
Okay.
No.
When should I expect a Zoom account? I have yet to hear back. I know she's probably really busy with other stuff, but I asked her last week for a Zoom account.
She's probably collecting all that information,
Okay.
and she's probably going to process it all at once because one person has to do it. So I would just be on the lookout for an email soon.
Oh, Kathy's on.
Brian, I can answer that question. I've submitted all of the requests for Zoom accounts to Susan, our Associate Vice President, and I haven't heard back from her yet, but your name was definitely on it. Anyone who was teaching this fall, I submitted the request.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you all again so much for participating in this and for teaching for us. And, you know, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Dr. Doherty. You know, we really appreciate your flexibility and working with our students. And just as a reminder, I do send communication through your Notre Dame email. I do have some alternative emails for some of you, so you may get things twice just because I want to make sure you get it. If you just make sure you're checking your Notre Dame email. I know that some of you don't teach every semester, so you may not look at it all the time, but every once in a while, just pop in there. That would be greatly appreciated.